views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
This is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Today's special interview on Zoom is Mr. Pete Baklinski. Did I say it right?
That's right.
Well, our Campaign Life Coalition. I got questions for you, sir.
All right, I'm ready to give you answers.
All right. You wrote an article. Oh, what is your role with the Canadian Life Coalition? I mean,
Yeah, so I'm communications director for Campaign Life Coalition. So I do a lot of writing of materials, including that report that you read, and things like that.
let's go to that report. Now, you write for Canadian Pro-Life News Bits.
Yeah, so we put out a weekly email to our supporters every Friday morning outlining what's happening in Canada on the pro-life and pro-family front. And we highlight like the main stories that are happening across the country. And one of them was that two women from Africa appeared before a parliamentary committee and told them some really astounding information. So we included that story in the Canadian Pro-Life News Bits, and anyone who is a supporter of ours and subscribes to that gets that every week for free. So if you want to be aware of what's happening in Canada on the pro-life and pro-family front, you can go to our website, campaignlifecoalition.com, and you can join up and you can get those Canadian pro-life news bits every week directly into your inbox.
So that goes for everyone around the world, not
Yep.
just Canada.
Yeah, anyone could sign up and get those.
Now, with Lucy Akello.
Yes. So a Ugandan member of parliament, Lucy Akello, actually flew in from Uganda, Africa, to be present in person in this committee meeting that was taking place in Ottawa. It was a meeting with the Foreign Affairs committee, and they are in the midst of I would say trying to draft some kind of a statement in response to the fall of Roe in the United States. And there's been a lot of back and forth during this process. And one MP, who is a pro-life MP, brought in Lucy Akello and another African woman to give some statements about something the Canadian government is doing in Africa.
Wow, Canada's doing something wrong?
Canada is doing something majorly wrong. So I don't know if many people know this, but Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Liberal leader Trudeau, has been on the forefront of basically pushing programs in Africa and funding them with our taxpayer dollars that are pushing agendas that are contrary to the family, including an abortion agenda, a contraception agenda, and it's funded by hundreds of millions of dollars. I think the current budget is approaching $1 billion for funding all these different groups that come into Africa, and they come with the intention of, we want to provide humanitarian aid, but there are strings attached to that aid. So what those strings are, and this is what the African women were revealing, this one MP from Uganda, as well as this one doctor from Nigeria. They were saying, you know, all of these aid programs have strings attached where if we want to get like clean drinking water, if we want to get schools, we have to sign on to these programs that basically push contraception and push abortion. And we can't get, you know, that aid money until we sign on to these things. And they were saying, we don't want that kind of help. We don't want contraception. We don't want abortion. And they came to this committee to basically tell them that that this is not helpful to our nation. What we need is education. We need to keep our girls in education. We need to provide clean drinking water. We need housing. And they were saying all the things that they actually want. And
Not what Canada
basically,
wants.
yeah, the Canadian response from the government is like, well, we'll give you those things, but first,
But
here's all these other things that you have to sign on to first. And they were so outraged, these women, about the Canadian government basically stepping in and almost becoming like they called them they said we're being colonized by these Western elites.
yeah, I hear them. I'm on the African side.
Yeah, and they're basically coming in with their colonization, and they're telling us what to do. They're not respecting our nations as a sovereignty. And so this one MP from Uganda, Lucy Akello, was saying, please respect that we are a sovereign nation and we know what's good for our people. And when you come in to offer us what you call help with these strings attached, it's actually undermining what's good for our people, what's good for our nations. And you're not listening to what we actually want. So they came with that message.
Canada wants money through abortion. Money.
Yeah, so Canada is basically, and I believe there's actually something racist to this. They're basically saying, we think that the solution to your problems, Africa, is that you have less people. We think that the solution to your problems is to decrease your populations. And so we're going to give you the means to do that. We're going to flood your villages with contraceptions, condoms, the pill. And when those fail, we're going to give you abortion so that you can kill your African children, kill your future. And every economist knows that you need a population to pull yourself out of poverty. The real treasure of every nation is its population. And when you lessen that and decrease that, it's a recipe for keeping them in poverty. And that's what the West is providing.
Death culture.
Yeah, yes.
There's no respect for life. They just want a decrease in population, no matter who it is, where they are. You're right, I hear you. Man. And Elizabeth Sully, what did she say about the overturn of Roe versus Wade? What to do with this?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about Elizabeth Sully. So she's a researcher at the Guttemacher Institute, which is basically International Planned Parenthood's research arm, right? So everything she says is going to be tainted by that abortion perspective. So she was also at this committee meeting, which happened, in early March, and she basically was lamenting that with the overturn of Roe last year, that there's been what she called a backsliding in the rights of women, the right to what she called safe abortion. As if there's anything safe about abortion that results in the death of the child, right? And so she was lamenting that there's been an international backsliding taking place, and she was basically there to tell the federal government of Canada that we want you to be at the forefront of trying to make sure that these things, contraception, abortion, are available in the developing world, and we don't want to see this backsliding continue. So she was encouraged them to put more resources into spreading these evils into the developing world. Yes. So that she was also at the committee meeting, and interestingly, while she was there, she made the case for why abortion has to be pushed in Africa.
Right.
And this is basically the argument she made. She said, everyone knows, and this is true, like all the data shows this, that contraception fails at some point. They don't, every single method of contraception has a failure rate, and they know this, right? The pro-abortion activists know this. And so when that contraception fails, this woman said, what you need is the backup solution of abortion.
Shoot.
So they basically flood these populations with contraception. They know they're going to fail. And then what do? They then roll out here's your abortion for your failed contraception. And of course, they get a lot of money from abortion.
That's
And
money.
it's
That's the main
basically,
thing.
a business. It's a business model of you flood the developing nations with contraception, and then there's the abortion as the backup solution. And who gets wealthy off of that? Well, the abortion providers. And so they make this neat little business for themselves where they're basically profiting off of the slaughter of African children. And it's simply like just disgusting.
It's inhumane. It's child abuse, ultimate
Yes.
child abuse.
Yes.
And I'm against that. Really. My late aunt was an abortionist in Toronto. She did a lot of killing for several decades.
Oh my goodness.
She died. So
Wow.
I've been gung-ho for about 50, 60 years since. I'm 71 this year. Still fighting it, and slowly but surely we're winning. Here in the United States, we're with Roe versus Wade being overturned.
Yes.
Trying to fight for my country, Canada, working with you guys, letting people know what's going on in my native country.
Yes. Yes.
And hormonal contraception, that is the contraceptive pill. At what age are the girls that the pill is being pushed?
Yeah. So this MP Akello told the committee that hormonal contraception is being pushed on girls as young as 12 and 13. And so, they come in with the organizations that are, offering aid. They come in with their programs of what they call sexual health and reproductive education. And a lot of it is education in like explicit sex education to get the children sexualized. And then they teach them
how the baby's being ripped out.
Yeah, and then they get them on the hormonal contraception at a very young age, and they basically push them towards sexual experimentation. Then when these girls get pregnant, then they push the abortion. So they basically, what they call education is all about actually pushing the children towards like an active sexual life.
Grooming.
Yeah, like these young girls. And this MP was telling the committee, we do not want this. Like, we do not want what you call education, which is sexualizing our children, at a younger and younger age. And, this whole stream that moves from, this so-called education to then giving them the contraceptions and then to the, providing them with abortions. They've got this whole package worked out. And at the end of the day, you have, hundreds of thousands, if not more than that, of just slaughtered African children, in their mother's wombs. And this is their solution.
Don't live sometimes through it either.
And this is their solution to solving the problems in the developing world. This is their solution. And it's very, I think it's very sick, and it's very racist.
And very evil.
Yes, yes.
Satan's behind all this, kid. Satan is behind us, and we got to fight him with the Lord himself.
Amen.
That's why
Yes.
Jesus came down from heaven to save our lives, for salvation.
Yes.
Not for just a few, but everyone.
Everyone. Absolutely. Yeah.
How can Canada's parliament members change their attitudes towards other countries by, making sure that they don't start killing other countries' kids.
Yeah.
It would change their mind.
I think they need to start listening to what the people from Africa are saying. Here's what we want. Here's what we need. A lot of I mean, we even saw this on display with this committee meeting. There was one MP, Rob Oliphant from Ontario, and he was essentially giving like a preaching homily to this MP, chastising her country for putting forward a law that was basically defending male-female marriage and having some penalties for people who think that it's okay for men to have relations with another man. Their country, African country, they're very pro-marriage and pro-family, and they're defending that institution. Whereas in the West, like we've lost all the defenses of a male-female marriage. And he was basically shouting at her like, how can you vote for this legislation? How can you even put it forward? It's against all these things that he was bringing up, and totally disrespecting that this is a sovereign nation, and this nation has its own laws that they're putting forward. It has its own sense of here's what's good for our people, and here he was on his soapbox lecturing her. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's not the right response. You need to listen to what she has to say. You need to listen to the needs that she's bringing forward, and then you need to respond instead of having this whole program laid out for how you think these countries should develop. And so he basically didn't care anything about what she said when she was outlining all the problems of the sexual, rights education that's being rolled out in Uganda, from Western nations, being funded, by Canadian tax dollars. He didn't have anything to say about that, but he lectured her about something else. And they need to listen. The government needs to listen to the voice of women in Africa who are actually saying, here's what we actually want help with. And they're not. It's so arrogant, it's so proud. And it's really like this. I believe this attitude at the heart of it is this idea of like, we know better than you who are in this country. We know better. And so we're going to dictate what we think, you need to do.
Dictate.
Yeah.
Trade.
So they need to listen.
What's the word? Tyrants. Other people in other countries, especially our Canada, towards other countries, trying to make them think our way is the only way. If not our way, it's no way at all. Is that what they're saying? Canada?
Yeah. Yes.
We gotta educate my country, Canada. Tell them, not force them, but tell them what is wrong with what they're doing. They need education. They need prayer. We need more people like Campaign Life Coalition and more pro-life politicians. Indeed, in our country, Canada, we don't want to go lose ourselves, lose our heads, and our people.
Yes.
Do you realize in over the past 50, 60 years of abortion in Canada, we have lost like a whole country worth of people.
We've lost over 4 million children since 1969. 4 million. That's bigger. That number is bigger than the populations of the majority of big cities across our country.
How can you expect us to grow and become healthy? It's going against God's word, actually, Yeah. I got a picture to show you. Jesus holding a baby. He prays over them. He sacrificed his life for us from womb to the tomb. That's what he came down for. And that's why I'm so gung-ho, wanting to save the people on this planet from the devil himself. People are just getting lost, transgendering and all euthanasia.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm.
this world is going weirder every time I turn around. And we
Yes.
need more sane people like us, more with our heads on our.
Yes. Well, the devil is called the father of lies, and
Mhm.
all of these anti-life and anti-family agendas are just jam-packed full of lies.
Planned Parenthood doesn't help either.
You have like the lies that what's inside a pregnant woman's body is her own body. Well, no, it's the body of a child. It has its own unique DNA. It has its own heartbeat, its own brainwaves. You have lies like someone can go through mutilating surgeries and injections to change from a male to a female. That's impossible.
That's going
Whether
against God.
being male or being female is it's at the core of your being, right down to the smallest part. You can't change external appearances and say, oh, now I've changed, from one to the other. It's impossible. So much of these things, it's all founded on lies, and the lies need to be exposed, and the only way you can do that is by shining the light of truth on those lies.
This uh, show of mine is pro-life, pro-family, pro-woman. And my stuff is, my episodes are shown all over the world, streamed online and put on YouTube as well as Rumble and sent to other countries. I'm here like you are. It's my ministry, really, my mission, to stop killing our human beings. We have the right to life, no matter how old, whether mentally ill, what sex we are, from the womb to the tomb, like I said before.
Yes, yeah.
We have the right to live. No one has
Amen.
the right to take our lives just for money or being prejudiced or whatever. Excuse me, I get emotional. So, how many pro-life organizations do you have there?
Oh, we have a lot of different pro-life organizations, all doing different things in the pro-life movement. So, Campaign Life Coalition is the political arm of the pro-life movement. So, we work to try to bring about laws that protect preborn children, from the moment of their first beginnings to all the way until they come, are born. And
And
but there's
afterwards,
lots,
infanticide,
and then
infanticide.
afterwards, from womb to tomb, like you say, we need laws that protect the preborn and everyone from the cradle to the grave. But there's also a lot of different other organizations that are involved in education of the public, involved in producing like literature. Like there's just so many different pro-life groups that all do different things, and all of us are all working together to eventually bring about a culture of life.
Yes. Change from the death culture. I don't know when that started, in the 60s, 50s, what? After the war, Second World War.
Yeah, especially accelerating, in the late 60s with, all the different movements that came out, and, the breakdown of marriage and the family, the
Free
spread.
generation, free sex.
Yeah, yeah, you saw that especially come out in the late 60s. And of course, with that culture, with it comes the whole abortion agenda, the whole homosexual agenda, and then the transgender agenda. Just one pack of lies after the other. But at the end of the day, you have hurting human people who, suffer from all of this, from these lies, and they buy into these things. And, they're the ones who need to be liberated from these harmful ways of thinking that destroy other people and hurt other people.
This is Patty Hunter, and thanking Pete himself, Baklinski, being on my show from Campaign Life Coalition. So thank you, sir. And we'll see you next time, next week. God bless everyone, and may everyone show love and compassion in their heart again. God bless.
I'm Pete Baklinski, Communications Director for Campaign Life Coalition, a 34-year-old Ontario woman who underwent top surgery and hormone injections to make herself look like a man, is now suing the medical providers who provided her with gender reassignment surgeries. Michelle Zakina from Orillia, Ontario, believes she was seriously wronged more than a decade ago when medical professionals rolled out the red carpet for her, giving her everything she requested to aid her in her delusion that she was male. Here's Michelle in her own words about what happened and why she's suing the health professionals who facilitated her medical transition.
I began identifying as transgender in young adulthood with no dysphoria beforehand. This was not a red flag to me, as I was assured that many people discover their true gender identity later in life. Less than a year after coming out to myself, I was prescribed synthetic testosterone, which permanently virilized my voice and appearance. I had a bilateral mastectomy 14 months later, and finally, 8 years into my transition, I had a medically unnecessary hysterectomy covered by the Ontario Health Insurance Plan. Each step involved irreversible alterations to my body and came with serious risks, yet all were met with little challenge despite my long-standing history of mental health struggles and no indication of gender-related distress in childhood or adolescence. I am alleging that this lack of inquiry is a failure of due diligence amounting to medical negligence towards a vulnerable patient. I will have to live with the effects of this so-called treatment for the rest of my life.
Michelle says she feels devastated and angry over what happened to her. She says, quote, "Some days the pain of what I've done to myself is overwhelming. I cry and I cannot stop. Other days I'm angry," end quote. Michelle is truly a hero for wanting to prevent this kind of abuse, this kind of mutilation from happening to anyone else. Young people are being rushed far too quickly into irreversible, mutilating procedures that do nothing to solve their dysphoria and, in fact, only increase their hatred of self. Tragically, many of these people cannot bear what they've become, and they feel the only option is to end their lives, and many have. In response to the growing devastation caused by transgenderism, especially among so many young people, CLC has launched a petition to the Prime Minister and to all the premiers of Canada, demanding that they ban the practice of mutilating and castrating children who struggle with gender dysphoria. Trying to change a child's God-given sex is not only misguided, but it's destructive and immoral. It's simply evil. Banning child sex change is a common sense proposal that puts the health and well-being of children first. Please go to clife.ca/ban child sex change to sign our petition. It's time to protect our children. It's time to end this child abuse.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us always, and for the rest of our lives.